So, Doomsday Arks, they've gotten quite a bit of flack over the last couple of months, and some people have even accused them of being nerfed. But today we're going to find out how you can get the most out of your Doomsday Ark. That's coming right up. Welcome back, great to have you here. If this is your first time here, here's what's up. If you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then be sure to smash the subscribe button and ding the bell. That way, you won't miss anything. Now, let's crack straight into talking about Doomsday Arks and if they're any good in this edition. So, the Doomsday Ark. Basically, it's a ghost ark that's been flipped upside down, lost its carry capacity, and had a giant shaped cannon strapped to the underside of it. So it's pretty cool, and because it's basically a ghost ark, it shares very similar stats. So we've got a movement of 12, we've got a weapon skill of 6, because you know you might be able to land on something and crush it. Unlikely. Ballistic skill of 3+, so pretty average. Strength and toughness of 6, so I mean, if it gets in close combat, it might crush something, and it's reasonably survivable. We've got 14 wounds, 3 attacks when we're at full wounds, leadership 10, and a 4-up save. But we do have quantum shielding and explodes. So like I said, basically, it's a ghost ark flipped upside down with a massive shaped cannon. So, like I've said before, quantum shielding does make it quite durable, which is really good, especially given the amount of heat that this kind of vehicle is bound to attract. Now, the Doomsday Ark's gun, it has 2 firing modes. If it stays still, it can fire at full power. In which case, it's got a 72-inch range, strength 10, it's got D3 shots, which, like I've said before, I don't like the D3. I'd rather it was just a flat 2. Or 3, or whatever they want it to be, just to take some of the randomness out of it so you can rely on it a bit more. But it's strength 10, AP -5, so it's not given saves to nothing. And then it deals an incredible D6, seriously, what the hell, Games Workshop? Can you just cut it out with the D6 and D3 stuff already? Anyway, I got off track. So it's got D6 damage, which is quite random, and I'd prefer it if it wasn't as random, if it just did a flat number of wounds, because it would be more reliable. Maybe when the codex come out, Games Workshop will see that. Games Workshop, if you're watching this, please fix this. It would make it so much better, in my opinion. But despite all this randomness, it is still quite fun to play. I'm not sure if it's the most competitive thing to take, but it is quite fun. And while it's not overpowered for the points, I do think that you can justify taking it for the points in the right scenarios. Now, the Doomsday Cannon also has a low power mode, in which case it's only firing 24 inches, but it is allowed to move before doing this. But you are subtracting 1 from your hit roll in this mode, so you're hitting on a 4+ rather than a 3+, which I'm not quite as comfortable with as probably some people are. In this mode, it still gets the D3 shots, and its strength is reduced to 8, which it's still plenty powerful enough for most applications. Its AP is reduced to just -2 though, which in my opinion, for the cost, is not really worth it. And then it's dealing D3 damage, but given in this mode, you're likely firing at stuff that has either 1 or maybe 2 wounds, if they're lucky. The D3 damage is not going to matter as much in the low power mode. Oh, and of course, if you're firing at a unit with 10 or more models, you get D6 shots instead of D3 shots in the high-powered mode, which is the reason why I think that the Doomsday Ark in this edition is not so much meant for taking down big tanks and monsters. It is much better suited for taking down heavy infantry that has 2 or 3 wounds per model. Because in this case, the D3 and D6 is not going to matter as much, and I think you'll get much more out of it firing at heavy infantry such as Terminators, because they have the 2 wounds, and the AP -5 is going to negate their armor, as well as your strength 10 means you're wounding them on 2s, which makes that D3 shots at units under a model count of 10 not quite as much of an issue. It's still not fantastic. I'd still rather if it was just 2 or 3 shots rather than D3, but that's what we've got. The other reason that I think that the Doomsday Ark is much more suited towards taking out heavy infantry rather than large vehicles is because of the 2 Gauss flare arrays. These things, like I said in the Ghost Arks video, are absolutely lethal just because of the sheer volume of shots they deal out. Couple that with the Doomsday Cannon to take out the heavy infantry as it's moving towards you, and it's very, very lethal. I think that you're best off positioning it towards the back of the battlefield just because it's going to draw quite a bit of heat. So if you can take it out of range or out of line of sight of a couple of their heavier weapons, obviously not las cannons because the quantum shielding makes las cannons next to useless against it, statistically speaking. Of course, if your opponent gets a lucky shot, there's not much you can do about that. And like with the Ghost Ark, the real thing that you have to watch out for when you're fielding a Doomsday Ark is weapons that deal out high volume of shots while keeping the amount of damage low. Plasma weapons, assault cannons, are the bane of anything with quantum shielding, just because they effectively negate it. And given that it looks like Games Workshop is giving us quantum shielding in place of good armor saves, you really need to make sure that you position it so that your quantum shielding is as effective as possible. So putting it at the back of the battlefield where it blocks line of sight to a lot of things that are likely to try to shoot at it is very effective. Or even if you can tuck it in behind a taller bit of terrain so that just the top is going over the terrain, meaning you can still fire with full effectiveness, but you're going to get a cover save, improving your 4-up armor save to a 3-up, which is not too shabby. And remember that because it does have explodes, where you position it is going to be kind of important, because if you have other stuff around it that you're not planning to move around heaps during the game, if it goes up, it could be dealing mortal wounds to those things, so it's something you have to be careful of. So that's the Doomsday Ark. Basically, I think it is best used as a heavy infantry killer. I would avoid firing it at tanks and heavy walkers and that sort of thing. That's the job of your destroyers and your Triarch Stalker. The heavy Gauss cannons are a much more effective weapon against those sorts of things with low model count and lots of wounds. Against heavy infantry with 1 or 2 wounds per model, maybe even 3 wounds per model you could get away with, where you're going to really be able to take advantage of that strength 10 by dealing out wounds on a 2+ rather than on a 3+ of the heavy Gauss cannon in the case of stuff that's toughness 5. It really does make it quite effective and stretches that D3 shots, which is not a lot and is kind of random. By making sure that you're wounding on a 2+, you're able to make it so that every one of those shots becomes more effective. And if you combine the Doomsday Ark with the Triarch Stalker, you're then re-rolling 1s, which is going to make that minuscule number of shots even more effective. The real trick to getting the most out of your Doomsday Ark is to make sure that the shots that you do get, because it is kind of random and you don't get a lot even if you roll well, is to make sure that every single shot counts. And the best way to do that is to combine the Doomsday Ark with stuff that's going to allow it to re-roll as much as possible. Hopefully, when we get a codex, there might be a stratagem or something, or they might even just change up the Doomsday Ark a bit to make it a bit more reliable, because at the moment it's not the most reliable thing in the world because of that D3 shots. But at the moment, if you combine it with stuff like the Triarch Stalker, so you're re-rolling 1s to hit and then you're firing it at the correct targets, so I would not be firing at anything above toughness 5 with it, just because the small number of shots is going to make it become less effective very quickly, going from a 2+ to a 3+. You are best off abusing that 2-up to wound where you can. So there you go, that's some of the tips and tricks that I use to get the most out of my Doomsday Ark. Even though it has been nerfed down a little bit, I still think it is a viable option provided that you take it in the right scenario against the right opponent. Don't use it against heavy tanks, use it against heavy infantry. It's much more effective in that scenario. So, let us know what you think in the comment section below. If you have any strategies that you use with your Doomsday Ark, I'd love to hear about it. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up so we know that you like it, so we can keep making stuff that you like. And also guys, what do you think of this format? Changed it up a little bit? Do you prefer this, or do you prefer sitting in front of the table and talking? Let us know in the comment section below, because at the moment this is purely experimental. And of course, as always, if you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then be sure to smash the crosshair and ding the bell. You'll subscribe and I'll be able to share with you more battle reports, terrain tutorials, and strategies to make your wargaming experience more epic. And I'll see you next time.